Hello, you are very welcome to this month's Eva's Echo blog. My name is Rena Bryson and I will be presenting Whatever Happened to Class.
Whatever happened to class?
So I am going to be exploring the question, are the arts classist in Ireland? And because this is a huge topic, I feel like you could definitely write a PhD paper on this topic, going into the history, going into all of the different areas of arts. Even if you did that as a PhD proposal, they'd probably be like, well, pick one arts industry. But anyway, because it's so broad and so big, as a starting point, I'm going to be talking about my own personal experiences in relation to classism within the theatre industry in Ireland, because that's what I'm the most familiar with. I'm a theatre artist and co-founder of Eva's Echo Theatre Company here in Galway, and I'll be coming from the perspective of someone who would have grown up in, say, lower classes and someone who makes art within the West, because location has come up as a very important point of privilege, especially when it comes to different funding opportunities and artistic opportunities. So we'll dive into that. Just coffee break. So in September, I told you this was going to be more of a rambly rant. Anyway, in September, I put up on Facebook that I was looking for people's opinions on classism within the arts industry. And I got some really good opinions, mostly about the Irish arts industry. And then there were other people who were able to talk a bit more broadly about Irish arts and English arts industry and the differences there. I should say these aren't the responses that I've got, as in they're not pure quotes. I've taken what multiple people have said in different comments and then I've merged them into the same thing that they were all trying to express. But I can also provide the exact quotes that people gave. So, elite drama schools can only be attended by those who can afford it, and those who manage to attend from lower class backgrounds feel ostracized. Yeah, that is a big one that I've heard. If somebody wants to say go to the Lear, where it seems like that's probably one of your best chances to get casted in theatre, or if you want to go to Bow Street to hopefully meet the right people and network to get casted for film and TV, you need to have money. They're just expensive places to go to. And then Dublin is also the most expensive place in Ireland. Galway is second. Yay! So not only is it the cost of tuition, but it's also the cost of living expenses. And some people have taken to doing GoFundMes and stuff like that. Some people take out loans. Opportunities are given to the same names again and again. So that would be, I would presume, just referring to once people get on that funding ladder, then they're more likely to be picked up for more opportunities because they came true and provided what they said that they would the last time with the Arts Council. So they're a safer bet to fund than someone who they've never heard of before. And I can see that from both perspectives, why that happens. People are pushed up the ladder because of their connections. It often comes down to who you know, not what you know. So yeah, incredibly true. In the arts industry, I feel like this is not just specific to theatre. I think it's across the board. And a lot of that is to do with funding opportunities. So say if you're applying for an Arts Council grant for a show, you're going for a project award, like a strand 3 or strand 4, where you're actually going to produce a show. You would need to supply the Arts Council with the names of all of the artists who are going to participate in the project. So if you're able to get Erin Monaghan. I'm just going to throw out like one of Ireland's leading actors, very, very well established. If you have somebody like that on your application, if you are lucky enough to get Erin Monaghan in your show, then you are probably going to get funding. While if you put down Joe Bloggs and Mary from down the street and the Arts Council don't know who they are, it just isn't as strong of an application. And that's not to say that applications haven't been successful because of the quality of the idea previously, but I'm just explaining why it is that companies will work with the same people over and over again. It's because of that funding setup that we have in Ireland and also the track record of the artists. This actually makes it very difficult to do what we do at Eva's Echo, which is try to have an open casting for every show. And we're able to do that very easily when we're doing a show that is a profit share production. But if we were going to be funded by the Arts Council of Ireland through, say, a project award, we would have to list the name of every team member in advance. So does that mean that then you hold open auditions and you cast people in a show that might not happen? I ranted. What was the next point? Yeah, this one's interesting. Theatre itself can be viewed as an upper class activity from outsiders. So people who don't attend the theatre regularly, or people who attend the theatre but say they'll only go to a Druid show or an Abbey show. They're not going to fringe or emerging artist shows. They have this idea that a night at the theatre is this very glamorous kind of upper class type thing, and especially people who don't attend the theatre at all. But I think when people who aren't that familiar with theatre, they think of theatre, they think of Shakespeare. And, you know, people being dolled up for a night at the theatre and it being a very upper class event. So that's kind of interesting, the other perspective about whether it is classist, the arts. And this one's very interesting as well. Last point from my comment section. The starving artist narrative has been dangerously romanticized. So this could be a whole blog in itself. I might do that. That's a great idea. Remember that for later, Rena. Tiger, are you taking notes? She's sleeping. Yeah, the starving artist narrative. It's romanticized this idea that artists kind of love as suffering for their art, which, trust me, we do not. And I think that this very dangerous romanticization comes from things in the media that actually show people who are kind of already upper class. Take Rent, for example. Apologies if you're a fan of Rent, but it is like a bunch of upper class like theatre kids who are like, I don't want to pay rent, I shouldn't have to, I'm an artist.
Hungry and frozen, some life that we've chosen. How we gonna pay? How we gonna pay? How we gonna pay last year's rent?
It gives the whole starving artist narrative this romanticization and that it's not a real issue, when it is a real issue, especially in Ireland, where we are not paying our artists to the standard that other European countries are. We're just not. It is a real issue. My computer's just froze and I can't remember what I was writing earlier. I am back and in business. I got my notes back to literally just help me remember what I was writing earlier today. So that's great memory work for me as someone who remembers big bulks of text for a job. But after I went through all of the comments, I started thinking back on my own personal experiences with classism within the arts, or experiences that, this glare is really annoying. Okay. After I went through all of the comments, I was reminded of my own experiences related to classism within the arts. And particularly I was thinking about when I did my master's in NUIG. and I would talk to my peers who were all amazing people and amazing artists. But it became very clear that we came from different backgrounds. So many of them had gone to these like performing arts summer camps, and some of them knew each other from those sort of things. Like, so even going back as far as like being kids, while our family just couldn't afford that, and even if we could, all of them were very far away. Like, there was nothing like that in Longford. I went to like summer camp in the Mall, and I think I actually transferred to like working it rather than going as a kid once I turned 12. But yeah, so just very, very different backgrounds. And they would talk about like productions in their secondary schools where they do these big musicals and all this fun stuff. And like our school like cut music. But in saying that, as a kid, I was very lucky in that my parents were incredibly supportive of my desire to be within the arts. They like understood very clearly that I had no like academic interests outside of that, no interest in sports, no, it was just arts for me, even if there were no arts systems that were like appropriate for me. So my mum like borrowed money, she saved money, she got me on a train every weekend to go to Mullingar to study music and drama. So I was very privileged in that support system, which is another way of looking at privilege and how children can be surrounded by the things that they're interested in, or get, a leg up in an industry that they would go into as an adult or whatever. So, what was I talking about? Yeah, so a lot of my peers would talk about all of this stuff that they did as kids, and also that they went to universities while I went to an IT. And the universities they went to had a lot of funding, and funding for drama societies, which was something that I wasn't really familiar with at all. I very quickly learned at NUIG because they have an incredibly big drama society. Like for amateur dramatics, for students who were joining a society, that they were putting on productions that like I could not dream of affording to put on as a professional theatre maker. Like, to me, because it was such a new concept, it was just like insane. I was like, what? Especially like a lot of my new friends I was making had come from Trinity or UCD, where the drama programs are very well funded and supported, like compared to IT Sligo, where we didn't have one. Yeah, so our shows in college, we didn't have stage managers, we didn't have production managers, we didn't have any of that. And that was something that my new peers found like really like, how could you have a show without a stage manager? And I think that a lot of this can come from, in the West, we're kind of used to working without resources. Which I think is a sad but true. I think artists in the West have a do-it-yourself attitude because you don't have the budget to hire a full team. And if you're working within a profit share, if you try and fill every position that's on the list, even if it's not 100% necessary, then everyone's getting less money at the end of the day. It made me very insecure about my education at the time, and I felt at the time that I might have been better off going and studying a different subject than performing arts, but in a college that had a really good drama soc, and I might have gotten some more hands-on experience with like a full professional team. But then after I left and I went back to the real world, not the college world, I was like, oh, it's actually really great that I was taught how to put on a show on a shoestring. And I think that could actually be a disadvantage if you were used to all the time making shows through a college where your drama soc was funded. So there's pros and cons to both, I think. I definitely was lacking some experiences because of that. Like, I can't deny that. The other thing that I noticed during my master's connected to classism was the power of networking. once a week we would have a guest speaker, and they would come in, absolutely incredible artists, producers, you name it, just like top class people in the industry. And I would be like so inspired during the talks. And then the question would usually come up of like, how did you get where you are today? Or like, how did you get your job? And the answer nearly always was, oh, well, I knew Joe Blogs and me and him were really good friends. So he was like, oh, here, you do this. And I didn't have a clue what I was doing at first, but like I managed it. And it was just amazing how often we heard that over and over and over again. So many people were like, oh, I was just kind of thrown into this position. I had to learn on the job. I had no relevant education or experience. And people would say it often in a very like, oh, it's a funny story way. But it was kind of also a know your audience, because and I'm sure many other people in that room, you know, I was putting myself into debt to get this master's degree, hoping that would secure me a job like theirs. But then I find out that they had no relevant experience or education, and they just knew someone who, because I'm not from an upper class background, and most of the time because of just not living in Dublin, I'm not going to be mixing in those same social circles. So that was something that really, really highlighted the issue of classism within the arts. And it was a pity, because it would really put a dampener on all of the inspiration that those talks gave, because I would feel so uplifted and so like, oh my God, that's amazing. I would love to do that. So yeah. Yeah, so this blog is like really impossible to wrap up because it's an issue that's ongoing. I'd really love to do a whole series on this. I've talked about my own personal experiences, because I feel like that is always the view that we look at things through at the beginning. Like, we can't help it. We're people. That's what we do. But I'd really love to look into the whole issue in different industries. So say looking at the theatre industry and the classism within it from a bird's eye view, not through my own personal lens, and then doing the same with, say, visual art, music, film, dance, everything. So let me know if that's something that you're interested in. And I would really, really love to hear stories that other people have found impacted them, or do people think even that the arts in Ireland is classist? And I think it's really interesting to ask this from the point of view of both an artist and as an audience, because I find it a huge barrier, this idea that theatre is for the upper class, while we're making shows here like Jungle Door and Vlogger, which are modern queer theatre with multimedia, contemporary text, you know, accessible language. It's all very like, either of them could be put into like the medium of like a film. You know, it's not Shakespeare, is what I'm saying. Yeah, so I think I'm done ranting. Thank you for sticking this out if you did. If not, that's cool. I kind of understand. Don't forget to comment, subscribe, share, all that jazz. You can find Eva's Echo on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and you can also find the written version of this blog at evasecho.com. And have a great day. Bye from me and Tiger.